Alright, I need to get organized here. I've got my sandpaper in this one cupboard, from my random orbit to Merca, sanding blocks, belt sander, and then hand sanding. And you can see I just kind of throw my used stuff in there, and that's really no way to operate. So what I intend to do here is, I've got about 16 inches to work with between the bottom of this shelf and the top of this one. I'm going to build a cabinet within a cabinet with some dividers in it, basically. It can't have a back, because when I put a half sheet in there the long way, I can still close the doors. But if I had a back on it, then that would take that option away. So I'm going to build basically a side-by-side with 6 different, maybe 7, just in case I have another option of group, another grid option I want to add. But new on one side and then used on the other, but still usable sandpaper. So basically 7 compartments by 2 wide, 7 high by 2 wide, and then deep enough. The cabinet doesn't have to be the full length of the paper, just long enough to support it so it doesn't get a set in it, from sagging over. I decided to make it out of this recycled Douglas fir that I got from my niece down in St. Louis, Alia. Anyway, I've ripped 2 pieces at 7 inches wide. These measure 77 inches long. And what I need is 2 sides, 2 tops, and then all the dividers. And what I plan on doing is the top and sides are all going to be 3/4 or thereabouts thick. And I'll be able to run this over my joiner and face joint on one side, then the rest of the procedure, square them up. But I'm going to need approximately 4 feet for the 2 sides, the 2 tops. I just did some rough math, and looks like I'll be about 44.5 inches finished, but I'm going to go figure 48. I'll cut 2 24-inch pieces. That'll be easier to work with. Then the rest I need to face joint, resaw, and then sand to get the dividers. Now, I don't need all of this for all of that, but one board would not do it. So I'm kind of taking the ugliest one for the case sides and top, and the one that's got the straightest grain here I'm going to use for resawing and the dividers. I got my pieces cut here. These are going to be split into dividers, horizontal dividers. This piece I'll make one vertical divider, and I'll have some left over. And then these 2 pieces are 2 sides and a top and a bottom. Now I'm not the big fan of resawing wood this way, but it's my only option because my bandsaw does not have the capacity to cut this 7-inch piece. I can only go about 6, I think is about my max on that bandsaw. So I'm going to run it through my blade. I got a thin kerf rip blade in here, 24 tooth, and I'll run it, flip it, run it again, and then I'll have to just use a handsaw to finish these off. So I'll show you one here and then we'll come back. there's what it looks like coming off the table saw. I've got less than an inch there, maybe 7/8 to finish off with my Japanese saw. So I've got a piece set up here. I've got it clamped in the middle where there's full support here. Got a little stop block right here to hold it back as I pull my saw. I've already started here and it seems to be working pretty good. Alright, well, I can salvage one piece here. And what I'll do is take this piece, but next time I'll cut halfway and then turn it around and come the other direction. Alright, different saw, which has got a much straighter blade. The other one I've used and abused, but came through pretty nicely. So I can work with this now. No problem. So there's two. I'll have to make a, let's see, I need 7. 2, 4, 6. I can get them out of that other piece. So I've got enough material. Let me show you how I did this. Well, you saw how I did it, but I didn't do it right. But the tool made all the difference here. Make sure I get these things locked down tight. There we go. I think what I need to make sure I do is put if there's a thick side, the thick side should go, looks like up maybe. Because that one is almost flush, almost perfectly flush. Here's my sides and tops, top and bottom I should say. And then here's my interior divider parts. So I just gotta get final dimensions here and lay it out, trim these things, and start assembling them together. Okay, I got my center divider in, and then I'm just trying to figure out where the first shelf is going to go, and these 1-inch blocks make that easy. So there's one, and here's the other, and the shelf itself will be about this high. I'm not going to guarantee it, but we'll make that work. So once I determine my setup here, I can just keep indexing off of the same end. And continue on up the ladder basically. I'm on my last piece here, just using my router plane to make sure these cuts are all the same depths, then this, I'm just taking a nice little skim cut, I should say, not coat, with this. It removes, basically it's just removing the irregularities of the saw kerfs. And bringing them all into plane, I guess. So that's it. So I figured out my index method on my table saw. I just set up a stop and then used my 3-2-1 blocks and an 1/8 inch setup block. So each time I finished a cut, I set up my indexing system so I could move it over exactly 1 1/8 inches. So 1 inch plus the kerf of the blade. And then just kept going up the line until I got done. And I'm always indexing off of the side that has the X on it. And in the middle partition, I had to do it on both sides, which is no big deal. Just flipped it back and forth. So let me put this together, a dry fit here, and show you how it looks. So there you have it. I'll get my little dividers cut here. And they should all be able to be exactly the same. I'll get everything cut, and then I can glue this together and then slide my shelves in there. Alright, I got a couple in, and then I clamped it up. I made a little production run after I was confident that these were pretty good. That one's a little fat. I'll pull that out later. Or I could just maybe eliminate it. I don't know. Alright, I was able to get them all in, except for these two. And you'll notice that they're in the same row here. When I cut them all at the same time, so I left this one just a little bit short, so it's a little tight. So I'll have to sand the edges of these shelves to get them to fit nicely. They get started, but then they bind up quick. So I'm not gonna force them in there. I'll just put a light sand on them and get them in there. So just stack one of my extra pieces here, leaving about what needs to be cut back to fit into that groove. Well, let's see how it fits. just like that. Okay, I had to walk away from this project for a day or so, and I left it dry fitted like this. But the reason I left these panels in here is because this is what can happen when you resaw material. And not all of them did this, but you run this risk right here. I mean, that thing just became a potato chip basically. And yeah, it'll flatten out, but to deal with that and put it back in that way, that's something I don't like to do, I guess. So just a heads up, this really is a perfect drying rack for these pieces right here. Holds them flat, plenty of air circulation, and they're going to be fine. So I'm going to take it apart and glue it up, and then we'll be ready to take a look at it in its new home. Alright, clamped up. The one thing I will say, I guess, about gluing this up was that I glued the middle partition to the top and bottom first, pressed that into place, making sure that I also pressed it back. You know, if it hung out a little bit, I pressed this way with the clamp to get it lined up, and then pressed it together, took the clamps off, glued up the sides, put those in place, left them floating basically. Glued the back half to third of the divider openings by laying it on its side like this. You know, glue this side down here, the middle down on this side, flip it over and do the reverse. Then slid the partitions in, and you could feel when they were sliding in, when they hit the glue spots, you know, you get that little bit of lubrication effect, I guess. So those went in pretty nicely. Then just you know, made sure everything was flush out here, and then just clamped it together. And you can see how many clamps I got on this thing. It's amazing. 6, 12 total, I guess. Alright, now how much better is that? That sure beats that mess I had up there before. Everything organized. I ended up with 4 extra slots. I couldn't count, obviously, but I thought I was only going to have 2. But that's okay. That's a good thing. So you know, 80 right on down to 220, and then the 4 slots on the bottom. Sanding blocks, the piece up on top there, that's my sandpaper cutting jig, I guess I'll call it. When I want to create half sheets, I simply take that out, and I can tear them up pretty quick. And then on the side there you see folding jigs and some auxiliary fences there for my JMP Bridge City tool. So all in all, it looks really nice. I can close the cupboards without having them hit the sandpaper here. So that's very nice. And you know, even though these hang out a little bit, they're stiff enough that they don't droop over and cause a problem. And then this is probably way more sandpaper than a guy should have, but I'll use it up. So there you go. Thanks for watching.